Hello, everyone. This is Yvette Kelly from the Managed Care Technical Assistance Center, and I'd like to welcome you to the pre-recorded Medicaid Provider Enrollment webinar. Today, we will be joined by Boris Vilgorin, who is one of my colleagues here at MCTAC, along with Antoinette Reardon, who is a Medicaid Claims Examiner with the Department of Health, who will preview the necessary steps for providers who are interested in enrolling in the New York State Medicaid program. We're aware that providers often have questions related to this process, and we're hoping this webinar provides some clarity around these steps. At this time, I'd like to pass it over to Antoinette to get us started.
Hi, this is Antoinette Reardon from the Bureau of Medicaid Provider Enrollment. New and existing providers of Children's Spa and HCBS. On page 2, the rules. To bill and be reimbursed for Medicaid for services provided. 1, provider agencies need to be enrolled in Medicaid. 2, provider agencies and individual staff providing SPA and HCBS need to have a national provider identifier number to ensure proper reimbursement. 3, provider agencies enrolled as a Medicaid provider need to have their NPI associated with their Medicaid provider number. Page 3, provider agencies need to have the correct category of service of 0268 on their Medicaid number. 1, agencies already enrolled in Medicaid with an associated NPI, but not with the category of service 0268, will have this category of service added. 2, agencies who do not have an NPI associated with their enrollment will need to contact OCFS or B2H Provider Enrollment directly. Page 4, possible scenarios. Scenario 1, provider agency not enrolled in New York State Medicaid. Scenario 2, provider agency enrolled in New York State Medicaid with NPI, but no COS 0268. Scenario 3, provider agency enrolled in New York State Medicaid, but no NPI or COS 0268. B2H providers, please contact OCFS at 518-408-4064. Care at home providers, please call 518-474-5271. Page 5, Scenario 1, provider agency not enrolled in New York State Medicaid. 1, apply for NPI. 2, complete and submit the Children's Spa HCBS Provider Designation Application. 3, upon receiving New York State designation approval, complete and submit the Medicaid Provider Enrollment Application with New York State approved designation letter. Page 6, Scenario 2, provider agency enrolled in New York State Medicaid with NPI but no COS 0268. A list of Medicaid provider numbers will be sent to B2H Provider Enrollment along with a copy of the designation letter and the effective date of the designation. This Medicaid number will be taken from your designation application. Page 7, Scenario 3, provider agency enrolled in New York State Medicaid but no NPI or COS 0268. 1, B2H providers, please contact OCFS at 518-408-4064. 2, care at home providers, please call 518-474-5271. 3, for questions about the Medicaid application, please contact CSRA at 800-343-9000 or the Provider Enrollment mailbox, providerenrollment@health.ny.gov. Passing to MCTAC.
Thank you, Antoinette. Appreciate you going over the rules, and in a little bit, Antoinette will join us again in talking about how to enroll as a Medicaid provider. As Yvette mentioned earlier, my name is Boris Vilgorin. I'm with MCTAC, here with Mick Silver as well. And today I'll be talking about obtaining an NPI number. As Antoinette mentioned, one of the requirements, in addition to enrolling as a Medicaid provider, providers also need to obtain an NPI number to be able to bill for services. An NPI number is required to bill both Medicaid and managed care organizations as well. And so we'll go through it. We have some screenshots on how to obtain, and also some examples of some of the information you will need as you fill out the application. So one of the pieces of the NPI that providers will need to determine for themselves is something called taxonomy, which basically describes what type of an organization, or if you're an individual who are obtaining NPI, what type of licensure or non-licensed individual you are. And again, we'll give you some examples in a moment. And all agencies, as I've mentioned already, have to obtain an NPI, as well as individuals who you're going to be billing for or under, I should say both licensed and non-licensed. We still get at MCTAC quite a few questions, and there still seems to be their confusion about non-licensed individuals. Again, just to restate, non-licensed individuals are able to get an NPI and actually should get an NPI, and we'll go through some of the examples in this presentation. And the important piece is when an agency does select a taxonomy, it does need to fall under the healthcare provider taxonomy codes. And of course, the individuals need to do a similar piece here. So going through this, jumping right into kind of what some of the examples. These are, again, to underscore our examples. We strongly recommend and encourage agencies and individuals to really look through the entire list. We provide the link here at the presentation through the entire list to make sure that whatever taxonomy you choose best describes your organization in this particular case. Again, the two examples we have here are community/behavioral health taxonomy code and foster care agency code. And of course, they come with definitions, and you can decide if this is appropriate for your organization or not. And if not, there's an extended list, again, if you go through the link to obtain the appropriate code for your organization. So these are organization taxonomy codes. The next one we have is for individual providers within an organization. When they're selecting taxonomy for their piece, this is for licensed individual. Again, example, there's an extensive list, as I mentioned, for agencies. They're same as for individuals. In this particular example, you have a social work taxonomy, and in social work, you can even get even more granular and indicate if you're a clinical social worker or a school social worker, and so forth. So again, that's another piece here as an example, and again, we provide a link for individual. And as I mentioned earlier, again, the non-licensed folks should also obtain an NPI, and we have an example here for peer specialists who might not be licensed. They might be licensed as well, but for those who are not licensed, there is a taxonomy code, and strongly recommend the individuals go through it to see which one fits better for them. Again, this is one of many examples we have. So we want to underscore taxonomy codes because it is an important piece, in this area. Because as you fill out that application, one of the main questions that you're going to need to complete is taxonomy. So here's a link and a screenshot of the actual website on where you would go to obtain an NPI number. Again, this is in case you don't have one. And for those who don't have an NPI, you would start with creating a new account, as shown here. That would be your first step. You would then, just like with a lot of other account creations, would need to accept the terms and conditions of this account. and then you would start the process of creating the account, for this. Again, it falls under the CMS category, right? So the first piece, you would enter the email and confirm your email, and of course, for security reasons, you will also enter the text that is provided for you. When you're doing this for an organization, as you can see, the information that's going to be required here, both for the user ID and password, and in a little bit you'll see additional information that you need to create. You would need to think about who in your organization will manage this and be the user. It does have to be an approved individual and a designated individual of your organization that can actually do this. So again, you'll be creating the password. This should not be any different than probably creating any other passwords for any accounts of either social media or otherwise. And again, there'll be 5 questions that you have to select for security reasons, and remember the questions and answers. So the next step in this would be, as I've mentioned already, the individual would have to put in their information in regards to their name, last name, all the usual kind of pieces. It does require a Social Security number here, and sometimes that gets a little tricky in this particular case. But again, this is, again, you're looking for an individual who has, the approval from the executive team, or might be part of the executive team to really be the designated individual to manage this. Of course, when you're obtaining an NPI for yourself, it would be your information specifically, because you're obtaining it for yourself. So the next step after you created the user profile and the ID and all the steps kind of that we went through, you would say create this, at this point, and you will receive an email, stating that you have successfully registered as a user, and that, the email will contain your name, user ID, and date of registration. And we recommend that you save that for your files. And after that, you will have an option to, kind of create, again, an individual NPI if you're doing it for yourself, or if you're doing this on the behalf of your organization. And also, when you get to this step, it also provides you with additional references guide and frequently asked questions through this. The taxonomy piece that I talked about really does not come into later after you sign in as the new kind of registered user, select which route you're going to go through as individual or organization. And when you go through that process, one real main question is going to be your taxonomy. If this is for an organization, there will be questions about your organization, where it's located, its address, and some basic information. But outside of that basic information, kind of the demographics, if you will, the only piece that will need to be completed is the taxonomy, as we talked about. One thing just to mention, another question that we get a lot is, if my organization already has an NPI number, do I have to get another NPI number? How many NPI numbers should I have? My recommendation has been over the years, it really depends. It depends on the organization. What I strongly recommend that question be brought up to the finance folks as well, because sometimes in organizations they choose to associate NPI with their finance systems and a way to track different programs or different types of services. But again, it's organization-specific decision-making. You might also want to talk to maybe the managed care organizations in regards to that, on making sure that if you are going to choose to get multiple NPIs. But I know more and more organizations tend to choose just one. But again, this is really an organizational decision-making process to see how best it would work for them at this point. So with that, I will turn this back to Antoinette, who's going to take you through applying as a Medicaid provider. Thank you.
Hi, as Boris said, this is Antoinette Reardon with Provider Enrollment, and I'm going to take you through the steps for applying for your Medicaid Provider ID number for the category of service of 0268. After you've completed the process of your NPI application and obtaining that NPI number, you would go to the Medicaid Provider Enrollment website, which the link is here on the page. Once enrolled, the correct rate codes and rates will be assigned to the agency Medicaid Provider number. Next is a shot of our Medicaid Provider Enrollment page. And on the right-hand side is the link for providers to go and apply for the application for the category of service of 0268. Next is, once you go into that link, is the page with the application and the instructions to complete the application. The next slide is the instructions on how to complete the application. And the next is an explanation of the required documents that need to be submitted with the application when sending to CSRA. The next slide, if you're already a Medicaid provider, Medicaid provider numbers will be taken from the designation application and sent to B2H Provider Enrollment, along with a copy of your designation letter to have the COS 0268 added if needed. Once the COS 0268 is added to your agency Medicaid provider number, the correct rate codes and rates will be assigned. Next, the New York State Agency Contacts would be first Office of Children and Family Services at 518-408-4064, or the Department of Health Care at Home at 518-474-5271. And the last contact would be CSRA at 800-343-9000, or the Department of Health Provider Enrollment mailbox, and the link is provided for you. And I'm passing this back to McTech.
Thank you, Antoinette and Boris, and really do appreciate you reviewing those steps for providers to enroll in the New York State Medicaid program. Again, I hope that they find the information very helpful, and I'd like to thank everyone for joining.